Hey guys, Jerry Berg, the Poor Historian here, bringing you a very long overdue introduction to a new series, as well as a review for the first ever Poor HEMA review series. And this one is so overdue because it's an update to a topic that most people who are subscribers are very interested in, and that is the Aztec Macuahuitl. So, I'm so proud to share this. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Purpleheart Armory. They were aware of the popularity of the upcoming Aztec Macuahuitl manual, and they were so nice to provide me with two of their Macuahuitl trainers. Very proud to bring this to you today. I do want to give a shout out to Christian over there, who's been immensely helpful through this and many other endeavors as well. So, this review will be reviewing the Purpleheart Armory Macuahuitl trainer. I'm so very proud to be able to do this today. So, firstly, I do want to say that I absolutely love this piece here. So excited. I've used it in combat. In fact, I was so excited to first get it that I went out and used it right away. And unfortunately, it kind of got some dings on it already, some black marks on there. It's fine. We'll get into cleaning it in a little bit, or at least my attempts in doing so. So what I wanted to say is that I personally find the length of this weapon to be very, very good. Now, we did cover that the original, the only surviving actual Macuahuitl was lost in a fire in the 1800s in the Spanish National Armory. So, we don't have a lot of records of the actual size of these. What we do know, however, is from the surviving codices that the Macuahuitl came in many different sizes and many different styles, and that's something that we'll go over in the upcoming manual, which is on its way, I promise. So let me go over this piece by piece like I do with most of the reviews. Firstly, I do want to start at the bottom. I do like that they did include the little hole in the pommel, for lack of a better term, of the Macuahuitl. That is, it's not in every single period example of the Macuahuitl, but it is very common and it's very identifiable, which is good. Does not add much to actual counterweight, but I don't think that's the actual point of the pommel of the Macuahuitl as well. I also wanted to get into the handle. Look at that. Look at that traditional Purpleheart Armory basic trainer design. I love it. Oh, it's so cool. I love the purple on there. I've got a few other trainers from them too, and they all have the crisscross purple paracord. I love that look. I love it. It's so identifiable. The handle length. So here's my thought on the handle. The original period Macuahuitl did have long handles like this. However, they were not two-handed weapons. I've had maybe one or two period images depicting them being wielded two-handed, but those are all in a non-combat scenario. What I believe is that the length of the handle was used for holding it in different ways. For example, if you're holding it like this, and then all of a sudden you slip to the very end, you have a surprising extra reach. Surprising your opponent. Nonetheless, I digress. The point being, this handle length is appropriate, and I very much like that they did take that into account. So if we go down here, let's look at this. This main body of the Macuahuitl does taper slightly to the end. I have nothing against that. I don't know if there are any period examples or images depicting that, but if there are, I'll see if I can find one and post it up here. But I do like it. I do like this design. So the period Macuahuitl would be made mostly of a hardwood, and then these little square parts sticking up here would be made of be made of a volcanic glass that's called obsidian, which is immensely sharp, very brittle, but nonetheless, this shape and this design does fit very, very well with it. So there were a couple things. Christian did make me aware that they did have, in this particular style, they did have a couple reports of it breaking, and since then they had, which makes sense, which I believe comes from these weakness the weakening parts in these thin sections here. And they have gone and improved it. I haven't seen the upgraded version yet, but I'm very excited to. But if you have had one of these and you have had a braking problem, they did let me know that they are improving it and they have a improved model to solve that issue. One thing that I am worried about the Macuahuitl, and I don't think that you can really find a way around it, is that, let me grab the other one. If you were in a sparring scenario, you would somehow find yourselves locked up. Almost like that, what do they call it? The sharp synthetic or whatever, the one that's being popularized, where it kind of locks up and acts as if you're getting in a bind with a sharp weapon. I don't think that would actually have happened because these obsidian blades would have been held in with mostly adhesive like glue and would of course be brittle. So I don't think that this locking up would be an appropriately historical part of reconstructive combat. Nonetheless, I don't think there's a way around it. One thing I did like is they did include this little point at the very end. I like that because it works to dispel the myth that you wouldn't have jabbed your opponent with the Macuahuitl. I do like that they did include this little thing here. They could have easily just ignored it, but they threw it on. I like that. So one thing that I did, and I'm on the fence on, is the weight. So period Macuahuitl would be made of hardwood. That's fairly heavy. It would also be, I'm not sure the thickness, but I believe that it would be a little bit more thick than this. However, making this more heavy would make it very dangerous. So it is a little lighter than I think a period Macuahuitl would be, but I think that's a very important safety aspect, which is really what we're all about when we get into this into HEMA. I mean, swords are weapons, and Macuahuitl are weapons. So we want to make sure that we're safe when we're reconstructing it, and I like that about this. Very stable, very solid. It does have that necessary flex involved so that we aren't actually snapping these weapons in half. So let me get into a little bit of the cleaning that I found. So what I did find is that the plastic gets stained fairly easily. You can see all these little black marks on it here. So what I actually did to get rid of it, first of all, I tried wiping it off with a baby wipe, and it didn't do anything. There's nothing. So I jumped to my next favorite conclusion, which is from shining and cleaning metal swords, is getting some sandpaper or sanding block. Very light, very, very fine grain. This one is a 220 grain. So if we can find a little spot, let's do this one here. So what I'll do is I'll take this, this costs about $4 from a supermarket, and just kind of go over it. And for the most part, it's gone right now. Now, because of that super fine grain, it doesn't actually take away very much of this plastic at all. In fact, sometimes when they cut out this plastic, you can see it kind of, hopefully you can see it kind of has these little lines from when they cut it out. That's something, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when the value of this is so affordable. If you take sandpaper like that, rub it down, it'll be much more smooth. I don't think that has any negative issues with combat or will cause anything like that. It's just something that you can do. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is that last I checked, Purpleheart Armory does have this in the Polynesian historical weapons section, which I don't know, it doesn't belong there because this is definitely a Central American, North American historical weapon, not Polynesia. They had similar weapons, but not like this. Maybe they'll put it somewhere else in the future, but for now, that's where it is. If you are interested in this and getting all the detailed specs, go to Purpleheart Armory, take a look at their weapon, and what you'll see is that it's actually a very affordable price, which is so cool, so glad. While you're there, remember if you are recreating Macuahuitl combat, you will want a chamali, which is the Aztec shield. You don't use a Macuahuitl without a chamali. They are one and the same. So make sure you pick one of those up while you're there. They've got the synthetic rotella trainers. That's something that you'll want to get as well. It's perfect. The only difference is that the Aztec shields wouldn't have been domed. So check that out. I love this. I am using this in combat, I am using this in training, and I will be using it when I finalize the Aztec Macuahuitl manual, which is coming up moderately soon. So it is in the process. Keep your eye on it. A shout out to Purpleheart Armory. I've got another basic trainer of theirs that I'm really looking forward to reviewing, the 1.5 Gross Messer. Thank you guys. Post below. Keep it up.